Hello again. Now, the digital revolution needs to provide work for a wide range of skills, with a particular focus on lower-skilled South Africans. Now, according to a study, it's the only way the fourth industrial revolution will have any impact on the country's challenges. While the country's challenges include intermittent power supply, a poorly performing education system, and the reality that many South Africans are unable to access economic opportunities at all. Well, Youth and Technology Manager from Genesis Analytics, Mark Skuman, joining us now to talk about what all this means. Mark, good evening, and thank you so much for your time. Now, you're from Genesis Analytics. You're one of the groups that make up the South Africa in the digital age, and this is a fairly new initiative. So tell us what it is that you found about what we're doing or what we're not doing in order to be able to exploit the fourth industrial revolution to create jobs.
Thanks, Viveka. So the South Africa in the Digital Age initiative has been convened by Genesis Analytics with our partners, the Gibbs Business School and the Pathways to Prosperity Commission at Oxford University. And really the purpose of the initiative was to answer one singular but incredibly important question for our country at the moment. And that is, where are the sources of income-generating work opportunities for South Africans in this digital revolution? And I think the reason why we've really focused on that question is for two reasons. The first is an obvious one. The education crisis is probably the most important development challenge for South Africa to solve right now. Secondly, and less obviously though, in order for South Africa to generate the kind of job creation that we need, a lot of the traditional sources of job creation that have worked for other developing countries in the past, a lot of the Southeast Asian countries from the 80s onwards, things like low-cost manufacturing, are now starting to close off because of the digital revolution. Automation displacing low-skilled labor, global value chains reshoring to other parts of the world. And so it's absolutely imperative that for a country like South Africa that we can identify new sources of jobs in the digital economy. And that's really what we've done as South Africa in the digital age. We've identified 3 concrete opportunities and 4 imperatives that we need to get right as a country for those opportunities to be realized.
What are the 3?
The first one is globally traded services. And that really says that although these kind of services typically were proximity-based, now because of digital technology you can perform them anywhere in the world. And so there's amazing opportunities for South Africans based here in South Africa to tap into sources of demand in other parts of the world. We call these global business services. These are things like call centers, business process outsourcing, and a whole variety of digital skills which are now being outsourced en masse. Coding, software development, testing, etc., as well as some interesting and innovative personal services like online tutoring or long-term care. So South Africa's already got quite a well-established global business services sector. We're employing about 250,000 people, but only 50,000 of those are export-facing. In other words, tapping into those global sources of demand. And we think that there's massive potential for us to tap into those global sources of demand to the tune of about 500,000 jobs over the next 10 years.
Okay, well, like we've said just now, Mark, you know, we have a fair amount of challenges. We can't even get the basics right sometimes already. We know that we have issues with maths and science, which I'm assuming are going to be imperative when it comes to preparing people for jobs like this. So where do we begin? Where do we begin to grow these skills, foster them, and plant the seed? Do we go all the way back to, you know, grade R, or do we work with, who do we work with?
So the exciting and hopeful thing is that these 3 areas of opportunity that we've identified are not futuristic things that we think are going to happen in the next 5 years. They're happening at the moment. But the point is that they're very small and nascent, and they're not able to scale because of exactly those challenges. So we've identified 4 imperatives that we need to get right in order for these opportunities to scale significantly enough to make a dent on our unemployment crisis. The first one is digital inclusion. And that really says that in order for this development pathway to be inclusive, it's critical that every South African is able to access these economic opportunities in the digital economy, irrespective of how much you earn or where in the country you're located. The second one is human capital development, exactly this issue of skills. And it's critical that we reform what the education ecosystem in South Africa looks like, so that we create a steady pipeline of candidates who are able to take up these new economic opportunities. And I just want to make a point here that, you know, often when people speak about the digital economy, they think that we're talking about high-tech skills, AI engineers, data scientists, and that's certainly part of it. But what our initiative has identified is that there's a broad spectrum of skills. And in fact, one of our key opportunities is about the opportunity to create work opportunities for low-skilled people in the domestic economy, mostly through digital platforms that connect supply and demand for these low-skill services.
Who are those low-skilled people? What are those low skills that you're talking about?
I mean, a great example that everyone is quite familiar with is e-hailing, platforms like Uber and Taxify. So those platforms together are already creating over 20,000 income-generating opportunities for South Africans, compared to about 10 years ago when we just had metered taxis, and I'm not talking about minibus taxis, but metered taxi services, about 8,000 South Africans were earning an income. So quite a large increase already. And we think that there's massive potential for these kinds of platforms to scale in a number of areas. Blue-collar services like domestic services, you may have heard of Domestically or Sweep South. The installation, repairs and maintenance space. There's a fantastic platform called Kandua that is connecting demand and supply for those services. In tourism, platforms like Airbnb, and in food delivery.
Okay. Okay, so what's the deadline and can we make it?
The deadline is now. These are opportunities that are going to go away very quickly if we don't act now. And so the time frame for the recommendations that we've made, we've broken them down into 3 periods. The one is quick wins. These are things that we think we can do in the next year, and we need to get those right quickly. Secondly, medium-term priorities, things that we need to get right in the next 3 years, and then longer-term investments in the next 5 years. But really, critical action needs to be taken now for these opportunities to be realized.
Okay, so time is or has run out, I suppose. Thanks very much for that, Mark Skuman. Fascinating indeed. Can we exploit it? Can we make the best of the 4th Industrial Revolution? Well,